It's time for Mac Break Weekly. Andy Ihnatko, Renee Ritchie, and Alex Lindsey in the house. We're going to talk about Apple's latest car plans. Who will they work with? iOS, macOS, and tvOS updates. We'll talk about what's new and what's coming with iOS 14.5. The Apple Watch now on 100 million wrists. And iJustine. She wasn't saved by her Apple Watch, but she got some interesting stats out of it. It's all coming up next on Mac Break Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust. This is Twit.
This is Mac Break Weekly, episode 753, recorded Tuesday, February 16th, 2021. In the Closet with Jibo. Mac Break Weekly is brought to you by SanDisk's Data Storage Solutions. Check out their iXpand Flash Drive Lux today and get 15% off your first order of featured SanDisk products at sandisk.com/MacBreak. And by IT Pro TV. Get a new career in IT with the best IT education around. Visit itpro.tv/MacBreak for an additional 30% off all consumer subscriptions for the lifetime of your active subscription. Use the code MacBreak30 at checkout. It's time for Mac Break Weekly, the show we cover the latest news from Apple. Hello, everybody. This week, I should, content warning. There's no news from Apple, so this could be a wildly vacillating show between comic books and audio and video production.
Nat Traversal.
And Nat Traversal. That's because, thank you, Renee Ritchie. He is, of course, at youtube.com/Renee Ritchie, and an expert on all things Nat Traversal. Actually, you're not our Nat Traversal.
It's a snow day. It's a snow day today. I don't have to
in
think
Montreal.
about Nat Traversal. Yeah, everything is closed.
It's weird. It's snowing in Montreal and Austin, Texas.
Yep.
Go figure.
We left the back door open on Canada again, Leo. It's our bad. We're really sorry.
It's your fault. Also with us, Andy Ihnatko, WGBH Boston.
See, what people don't understand is that not only is there no evidence in the movie itself that Deckard is a replicant, but also the whole point of his whole arc
be back
is about how
with more from Andy in a moment.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's
I thought that was my big chance because we don't have much.
It's a running joke from earlier in the show where Andy apparently has learned that ether. What was it you learned?
No, there was some sort of like a factoid thing where it's that, you know, how in the movies were like, you know, in the 1930s, like, oh my God, they knock someone up by just pressing ether against their face.
They still do it now. I just saw it in a movie the other day.
Yeah,
and they immediately fall over unconscious.
Right. But it takes several minutes. I am told. So I've not tested this out on myself.
Through experimentation.
And to which Andy posited he could probably put you to sleep in 45 seconds if he picked the right topic.
It really is my skill set.
And hey, we're thrilled to have Alex Lindsey back on the board. Hello, Alex. 090media. Good to see you.
Yeah.
The true king of Nat Traversal.
You know, I'm just glad that I'm coming in at full resolution.
Look at that.
This time.
Look at that. So
It was marvelous.
Behind the scenes, you know, we've been experimenting. We used Skype for time immemorial, since the mid-2000s. But I'm nervous about the future of Skype. We often have problems with Skype. So we've been playing with other solutions, including Steve Seguin's very nice OBS.Ninja, which is open source based on WebRTC. And we couldn't get Alex to come up with Skype very well. If you remember last week, he was all blurry.
I'm pretty sure that they took all the Skype engineers and they moved them over to Teams, and they left some like high school interns. I actually know high school interns would probably do better. But yeah, exactly. But they left them like what are we doing with this? And they're all using WebRTC. They don't even know how to use Skype, and they're just doing the best they can to keep their job. You know, because Skype is such a dumpster fire at this point. I mean, it just gets worse every 2 weeks. It gets worse.
Well, here we are using OBS Ninja with Alex, and it looks fantastic. Go ahead. Sorry, Andy.
No. I was just going to say that like Alex has like this like $80,000 really wonderful cameras and lighting. I have like basically what you can buy from Amazon. I think that it's like the PGA the golf tour, where you can have a professional who gets a handicap. I get a handicap, equals a playing field. Equals a playing field if Alex, based on how smart he is about wiring up his studio and the quality of his equipment, Skype can optionally, like, we're gonna reduce your pixel count. And you're right. So
it's like putting lead in a jockey's saddle.
That's the equalizer.
Exactly.
That's not Queen Latifah. It's Skype.
We put lead in Alex's Skype connection just to make him equal to all of us. You do, in fact, have a great picture, great audio.
Thanks.
Everything's working well thanks to OBS Ninja and Steve.
Marvelous.
Steve, by the way, was a guest last week on Floss Weekly, our open source show. So if you want to know more about Steve, it turns out he's a CIO at a big company, and he does that in his spare time, just for fun. But Alex, you've been using other. What do you use? You use Zoom, you said, right?
Yeah, I mean, so most of the time when we're connecting to folks, we use Zoom. What we do is we build Zoom rooms, and then each Zoom room has a person, and then we mix everything in hardware, much like what you do. So it's very much like
you
what
have Zoomosaurus.
I have a Zoomosaurus, right? Except my Zoomosaurus has about 14 points to it. So you can do up to 14 people right now. I think we're going to go to 20 later this month.
Nice.
And so we can take up to that many at one time in Zoom. And the thing that's easier is
how do you send a mix down back to the participants?
Yeah, so ours is a little bit more complicated because so all of the audio comes out. All the computers are all on Dante, so they're pulling all the audio to and from with Dante. That goes into a Yamaha QO1, which does the mix and the mix minus. But the Yamaha then goes through a ClearComm Eclipse, and the reason we do that is so that we can add comms to comm channels to the process as it goes back to each person. So each person's getting a mix minus, that's formed in that pipeline. That way they can hear program, they can hear each other, but we can also talk to them. In fact, the way that our ClearComm works is that a producer can be watching from anywhere and open up their phone and have comms on it. And if they want to talk into the host's ear, they can just push a button and talk into their ear. And so that makes it a lot easier.
There you have it, a small, tiny simulation of what you hear every morning on office hours.
Yeah, what's funny is that's all we talked about today. This morning it was all about comms. So we it was an hour of us just geeking out about comms.
And now on Clubhouse, by the way, which I've followed you on Clubhouse, Alex Lindsey, so I can. We had
to figure out how to hack the phone because you can't join Clubhouse any other way.
Yeah,
than
they
the
don't
phone.
want you putting that stuff in Clubhouse, but you figured it out.
Yeah. We have just it's
Was it got a little Henry device to do it, or?
Kind of. It's all tangled up.
Henrys convert the unbalanced phone output into balanced for a mixer, so you need like a reverse Henry that takes the balanced mixer output and puts it into the unbalanced phone output or something.
Yeah, so we're using a USB Pre 2.
Oh, that's it. And you feed the phone. You put the phone in the Clubhouse.
So this is what it looks like. This is the USB Pre that feeds the phone. So it goes USB out of my laptop into the USB Pre, and then this part goes out to the phone. It's just going to one of these little dongles. Yeah. So it all ends up in this little the little dongle.
As if you're using a headset to participate.
Exactly. So it looks like a headset. It looks like a headset to the phone, but it's full program.
And Clubhouse
we haven't gotten
nothing.
We are sending it out right now, but next week we're going to start allowing people from Clubhouse to actually talk to Zoom through the phone.
Right.
I'm just trying to make this. I'm just trying to learn how to use Clubhouse first, and so.
But that's one of the things that they did right on Clubhouse was you have a stage where you can have some number of people on it, and you invite people up from the masses below into it. But there's also a raise a hand, and then you can give a person a chance to ask a question as the moderators. There's some nice moderation tools, I guess, is what I'm saying.
It's interesting. I mean, it's
not as nice as yours. Yeah, I know.
Well, we have a Q&A system. So what we do is the worst part of if you're in Clubhouse, we give you a link to the Q&A.
Oh,
so
that's terrible.
People are listening in Clubhouse, but we tell you, and in the description, we tell you where to go, and then you can ask questions. And so then we're kind of merging.
I hope this doesn't get used against you by Clubhouse, like this recording. Like Clubhouse says, you see, Your Honor, I told you he was hacking us. You were actually quoted a bit in Clubhouse. You were in, Renee Ritchie, some room that got a lot of attention recently.
Yeah, it was all the wrong kind of attention.
What was it? What was going on in the room?
There was a clash of different moderation styles where a very, 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 probably one of the most popular YouTubers on earth was doing a Q&A, and he's very new to the platform. He just moves people in and out. He was the only one moderating, could not keep up, and it involved a contest of Gary Vaynerchuk avatars. I do not want to dive too deeply into it, but he got confused and moved some people out. One of the people he moved out was Clubhouse popular and wasn't used to being moved out. And so went to Twitter and
so what you're saying is the mean kids are here in Clubhouse now.
No, it's just like the thing is that there's expectational debt. Like some people believe very strongly that you should always take questions. Some people want to do what Alex does and just broadcast like a lecture. Some people want small panels where only the panelists are talking. Others want to continually change. Some people are very cognizant about who, like we were trying to increase diversity on the panel. So we were moving some people out to bring more women and other people up. And some people don't care about that. Some people desperately care about it. And when you have so many people with such very different expectations, it can sometimes be explosive when they're not all like.
Sounds like real life.
Aligned.
Yeah,
it's like a conference room, but like it's all different kinds of conference rooms at once, and everybody wants a different kind of conference room.
Well, and since we've been doing this for a year, we have a very specific way that we like to discuss stuff. Yeah. And so, like for instance, we open up. So on Wednesday nights, we're doing at 7:00 on Wednesdays. We're actually doing Clubhouse, which is like we're not using. We're not piping Zoom into Clubhouse. We're just using Clubhouse. And in that sense, though, still, I know who all the people are that are on my panel all the time, and I just bring those guys on. I just bring everybody up to the.
That's called moderation.
On stage.
Moderating.
Yeah, and then and so if I don't know somebody, if they're not someone part of our community, I kind of am not ready to take too many chances yet.
Yeah.
With that. I mean, we had so many bad experiences in the very early days of our little Zoom sessions where people would come in and Zoom bomb and everything else that were pretty specific about how we do it.
You're doing what eventually everybody on Clubhouse will have to do, but you have years of experience ahead of time. So
but some people think that's not fair, and if those people are also popular, it can create a lot of disharmony.
I don't want to spend the whole show talking about Clubhouse. It's not that light on Apple News. Although I think technically we could call this kind of an Apple discussion because the only place Clubhouse happens is on iOS right now. Soon.
Yeah, they have an 8-person team, and they keep saying they're working on the Android version, but they're also having huge scaling problems because they're built on Agora, which is an audio video platform from China. And when someone big comes on, like recently, they've had outages because Elon Musk came on and brought Kanye. Steve Ballmer came on. A couple other really big, and the idea of Steve Ballmer having to use an iPhone for Clubhouse delights me in so many ways.
Oh, that one you stomped on, Steve, a couple of years ago. You should have kept that one.
But yeah, so they're still going down, and then some people are concerned about the security model for Algora and whether it's like for Agora, and whether it's really safe for straight
to China. Yeah. If you're worried about TikTok,
they have all this.
Yeah. So the good news is there are about 8 million Clubhouse clones like yesterday. In fact, we had Wesley Faulkner on Twit on Sunday, and he works at a company that does daily.co, that does WebRTC integrations for people. They have a real-time API. And he said one of their users created a Clubhouse clone in 1 hour. Because if you can use WebRTC, there's Spaces on Twitter, which I haven't used yet, but it's been around for a while. Mark
Instagram
Cuban,
and Facebook have
Instagram
announced.
And Facebook. Mark Cuban has announced something called Fireside, which sounds like Clubhouse. I mean, it's not hard to do what Clubhouse is doing, honestly.
The hard part is
there's also another one.
The community, as always.
The community building is the
as
hard
always.
part. It's not
with everything
doing this.
Yeah. As with everything, it's the network effect.
Well, there's one called Stereo that has limitless venture capital money from Baidu, and they are paying a fortune for quote-unquote influencers to host rooms on their platform.
Since we've
thousands and thousands of dollars.
So Baidu's also a Chinese company. So since we've already brought this up, maybe we should, because this is something that Apple has is grappling with right now, is this issue of, should you. Well, Apple does business in China, which means they have to follow the laws of China. So that's one issue. And then the other issue is Apple's very dependent on China because everything's assembled there. There seemed to be noise over the last few weeks that Apple is looking to move as much of its manufacture, or its assembly anyway, out of China to places like Thailand, South Korea, Vietnam, India, Brazil. Foxconn, of course, has factories there. It also is supposedly building a factory in the U.S. What do you think, Andy? How should Apple approach China?
Apple needs to have a plan B in case things go very, very south there, because we've not only
it's not just there; it's here too.
Even if,
as we start to say we don't want to work with China, that becomes an issue too. Look what's happening with Clubhouse and Agora.
Yeah, but not only for any political reasons or any trade reasons, but because we saw what happened when the coronavirus started shutting down manufacturing in China. The fact that they put so much of their investment in, if China shuts down, we have no ability to build iPhones. We have no ability to move. I think that put the fear of God into a lot of different industries. And that's why you see a lot of other nations offering really, really good terms to companies that want to start to build manufacturing plants. This is why Foxconn has really upped their game and making sure that whereas before you would see plants being manufactured and plants being built in India mostly to comply with local laws saying, look, if you're going to sell in our country, you have to manufacture in our country. We're now seeing we need the idea that we have to diversify our supply lines, because otherwise we've seen what happens when you have when you trust one incredibly good source for all your supply. But also, I won't beat this horse again, but I do think that Apple is gonna need to have a lifeboat in case China ever throws them a rule that they just absolutely cannot follow. Once they pass a law saying, look, we're going to have to make sure that we're going to have to insist you create a new version of iOS for us that lets us track any citizen that we want based on any one of 50 different demographics that we ask you to wire in. Apple's going to really have to say, okay, we're done. And so at that point, they're going to have to make sure that they have that plan in place so that they could simply have a bump in their workflow, as opposed to we're done, we have to reinvent ourselves.
And I think that there's a balance between the two as well. I mean, I think that the one of the issues is that China can't afford for a huge outflow of all the Apple leaving would spook a lot of manufacturers. It would not be good for China overall.
Destroy the economy in Canton.
Yeah, and so, but I do think that right now trying to reproduce what China has would be very difficult anywhere else in the world. But the overall trend on almost every industry is the diffusion of resources. How do you move? I mean, we're seeing it with people, leaving California, leaving New York, leaving cities, leaving, all those things. This is going to change a lot of things forever. And so we're going to see, companies have gotten clear that you can't have any one place that you're building things because, we've seen this there's a lot of drama right now in the audio industry because one of the factories that makes all the little A to D converters caught fire. They're the only ones that make those, and so now, no one can build their mixers and build their other things because of that.
Wait a minute.
We've seen that in Thailand with hard drives. Go ahead.
You mean all the A to D converters are made in the world are made in one factory?
One building. They're a tiny little
Aren't
piece
there
that costs
multiple
$3.
companies that make these things?
It's a tiny.
We had that with poutine cheese.
$3.
It was a national disaster. The poutine cheese factory burned down.
Yeah.
Well, this happened before. I remember there was a big fire a few years ago in a memory factory, and even though it wasn't the only one, it still made some real constraints on supplies. This is a very important point. I think is diversity in the supply chain is important, and of course
it's hard. Someone gets into a circle of something they're really good at. So this is AKM. The AKM fire is the factory fire, and they just make these. They make these little chips that they could be down for 6 months to a year, and this is everybody uses it. It's the thing that everybody uses, and so and the market's not big enough to support probably 2 or 3 manufacturers. That's the problem. It's everybody's using them, but it's not a huge market. It's a very, very vertical market.
They're also massive
but we saw that also
shortages in chip supplies now for graphics cards, and
the end of tape. Came from the earthquake. So when the earthquake in Japan,
the last
destroyed
factory.
No, they destroyed the only 2 SR tape machines.
Oh wow!
Because one had been moved from LA for calibration or something, and so suddenly those tapes became prohibitively expensive. Everyone moved to memory, and that was it. It was the end of tape. That was it. It was. And so diversifying, to Andy's point, diversifying is what everybody should be doing, and I think and it's become much, much easier in the last 6 months.
So this AKM, I'm looking at a story at Pro Sound Network from October. AKM factory fire, a pro audio industry disaster. This happened in October, but it's still an issue.
Yeah,
Asahi.
I mean, because the chips went from $3 to $4 each to like $250 each.
Wow. And this is not just ADCs. This is DACs as well, apparently.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought there were like a lot of different companies making these things. Is this a case of kind of like a fabless design company designing a DAC and then outsourcing it to AKM, or?
It's really just, it's an OEM that just provides that chip, and they're really good at it, and they just make them all, and the market's probably not big enough to
Tascam,
build another
DSP, merging technology, SPL, and RME, all designed around AKM chips. Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, but it's that kind of thing. Then that's what China has all these other various issues that are going to continue to be a problem for them.
And to your point, Leo, this is why we're suddenly seeing a lot of interest and investment in chip manufacturer plants, chip foundries, because we have 2 foundries in the entire world, and once they get at capacity, that's it for phones. That's it for graphics cards. For heaven's sake, the thing that really got my attention as I was following this is that, wow, they're actually considering building a major chip foundry in the United States of America, where you're not going to get that much help from the government. You're not going to get that much help from labor organizers. The fact that any part of the world is now open to the idea of we're this desperate for having the ability to do 5 nanometer chips, any sort of technology that is desperately needed. We can't have it we can't have it in a situation where Apple can buy 80% of the output of a single factory, because that really puts the brakes on not just the phone industry but the entire chip industry.
To give you an idea of,
because they're worried that.
Go ahead, Renee.
No, there are also fears that China is looking very hungrily at Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing and may want to at some point make moves of nationalizing it or taking it over or making it supply Chinese interests. I think Ben Beharin had a really interesting article this week about why it's critical that Intel doesn't stop doing its own foundry work, or maybe spins off its foundry and makes its nodes, its processes available to everybody else, because we could easily get to a point where you need foundries outside of Asia, and right now you have Samsung and you have TSMC. That was
with the new Intel CEO, Gelsinger. The rumor was that Gelsinger would announce that we're going to close our fabs. Fabs, just to give you an idea, this fab that you were talking about, Andy, that TSMC is going to build in Arizona, will cost $12 billion, and it won't go into production until 2024.
But is it real? Because TSMC keeps promising to build stuff. Or no, was it Foxconn? Was it who did the
Foxconn's the Wisconsin one?
Yeah. Okay.
That was a political act. It was, and they got some tax money, I think.
He would post every 2 weeks on the progress of that plant in Wisconsin.
Nothing happened in that. I mean, eventually they'll do something with it, I'm sure. An Arizona fab, that's one solution. That'll be TSMC's second facility in the U.S. They have one in Camas, Washington, but it's a pretty old plant, actually.
Right. So. It's the newest technologies that are most precious.
Yeah, nobody wants the old chips, right?
Yeah.
And I think this really is important to Apple, because Apple does custom chips, and all of their production, iPhone, iPad, and Mac, rely on chips made from TSMC at this point.
Yeah. They used to double source with Samsung, but on this generation, Samsung hasn't been able to keep up. Their 5th generation process isn't as good as TSMC's, which is why everybody wants TSMC's. And it turned out that it was a really good bet on Apple's part to prepay and fund all of that.
They bought them up ahead of time, huh?
They spend so much money there that they essentially help fund the launch of a new process, which is incably expensive, and that grants them access to it for a while.
Yeah. Let's take a little break, but I do want to come back and talk about that, because now we're starting. For the first time, we've seen benchmarks of a new M1 chip on the Geekbench sites. I don't know if this is BS or if it's something worth talking about, but it's about when we start to see them, I think. Lots more to talk about. Actually, as it turns out, there's a 14.5 beta for iOS that has a significant number of new features. We could talk about that. They've seeded the second beta of 14.5. Yeah, and a lot more.
Another shots fired sort of release.
Yes, another shots fired. I think you just said the right phrase. Our show today brought to you by SanDisk. You know the name SanDisk. I've used SanDisk memory in my cameras for years in my phones when I used to be able to put micro SD cards in my phones. This is a new SanDisk storage solution I'm really excited about. This is the iXpand. Well, I have two of them here, but I'm going to show you the iXpand Flash Drive Lux. You're going to love this. So here, let me hold it right here because I want to surprise you. Looks like a normal USB key, but look, it's got a lightning port on it. Oh, and look, flip it around, it's got a Type-C connector on it. So this is really cool. If I plug this in to my iPhone, the SanDisk iXpand Flash Drive Lux has its own software. It says allow. I'm going to communicate with the software, and it's going to start backing up my photos. It's going to start backing up everything I ask it to back up, including photos, contact information, music. This is awesome. And because it's Lightning, I can connect it right to my phone and then flip it around. And now I've got Type-C, so I can plug it into my Mac or any other device or copy it to another phone. No internet needed. If you don't have to use iCloud's photo storage, you can if you want. In fact, this will back up everything from your iCloud photo storage if you want. So you don't just get thumbnails, you'll get the originals. You could choose from 64 gigs, 128 gigs, or 256 gigs, depending on your storage needs. You saw, as soon as I plugged it in, it immediately launched the iXpand software. And look at this. Wait a minute. Show my phone again. It's almost done. You're going to miss it. It's already backed up 200. Oh. Just finished backing up. You just missed it. But it backed up all my contacts. I can set what I want it to back up, when I want it to back up, just plug it in, and now I can just unplug it, and I can easily put it on my MacBook or anything else with a Type-C connector. Move your content around. This is fantastic. For the first time ever, I could just plug something in to my iPhone and get the data off right away without uploading it to iCloud, without even airdropping it. So it's great for really big files or mass copying of files, and it happens completely automatically. I just have to say, copy the photos from the phone, copy files from the iXpand drive. Here is a directory of all the stuff on my device, including basic files. I can get all my music, and you see it even shows you the album art and everything, so you know exactly what you've got. My videos, I can copy them over, boom, just like that, one by one or en masse. You have a select all button, and of course all my photos. There's a lot of photos on here, so it's going to take a little while to sort those all. And actually, I've already backed them all up, so it's not going to take too long to back up the additional stuff. This is an awesome solution. You don't have to mount it or unmount it. You don't have to do anything. You just need the iXpand software on your phone. You don't need it on your laptop, obviously. In fact, here I am on a Linux machine. Watch this. I can plug it in, and I can see all my data. It's pretty amazing. The 2-in-1 drive from SanDisk. It's called the iXpand, iXpand Flash Drive Lux for iPhone, iPad, and any USB Type-C device. The 2-in-1 drive from SanDisk. Go to SanDisk, SanDisk.com/MacBreak. You can get 15% off your first order of the featured SanDisk products. There's more than one on that page, but one of them will be the iXpand. That's SanDisk, SanDisk.com/MacBreak. This is so handy. I love it.
I just, as a matter of fact, I just bought a couple weeks ago a different SanDisk upgraded my flash drive to 256 gigs USB-C because I needed the speed, I needed the portability, because everything in my office is supposed to be able to talk to each other, but sometimes sometimes you just need to take a big pile of files, in my case a big pile of movies, and I just want to plug it into my video streamer and not have to deal with, I have not logged into from here to here. Sometimes SneakerNet is actually the best source to get a solution.
Plus you have a backup now, that's not internet independent. The other thing I really love about these, and it's not in the ad, but I'm going to mention it. Every time I get a SanDisk device, it has a keychain grip. These are made of nice solid aluminum for one thing, but you can put this on your keychain and carry it around, and I love that. It makes it very, very useful. I'm a big fan. So thank you, SanDisk, for supporting MacBreak Weekly. Thank you for supporting us, and get your 15% off at SanDisk.com/Break. Mac break. Okay, I'm done. I just wanted to show that to you. I have another one too. I'll save that for another show. There's another device too. It's all on that page. Moving right along.
Got my V90 cards. So good.
Oh yeah, like everything in all my cameras is always SanDisk. Always.
Because the new ones record at such a high bit rate with such a high resolution that you have to use them.
It's really mind-boggling what has happened. And now they have micro SD cards that are huge. I mean, it's really exciting.
I can still remember like seeing the spec for the micro SD cards and seeing the speeds and the size, and you're like, that's never going to happen. There's no way it can be that
smaller than your pinky fingernail, and it can all 2 terabytes.
I just got the C70, which is basically the next generation for the C200 Cine camera, and it just uses V90 now. It doesn't even use CF, like the big CF cards. It just you put in the SD card and it works. Yeah. And it does double recording. It does relay recording. It's fantastic.
It's so we're old enough to have our minds boggled that like I right here on my desktop I've got a 10 terabyte drive that I've nearly filled up with like historic backups and DVD rips and Blu-ray rips. And before it would have been like, even 5 years ago, it would have been, oh geez, I'm running out of space. I better like find room. Okay, I don't need that anymore. I don't need that anymore. Now I'm like, I can buy another 10 gigabytes for $120. I'll just put a sticker on this with the date, put the hard drive in the closet, and buy a brand new 10 terabyte hard drive or 12 terabyte hard drive. It's such a wonderful. There are things about 2021 that don't stink. And storage, access to cheap storage is one of them.
Go ahead.
We've got into getting these OWC, these little RAIDs using NVMe, and they're like you put 4 NVMEs, and there's a 16 terabyte RAID that's like this big, and it runs at like 2,000 gigs per, or 2 gigs per second.
You could edit off that in real time, couldn't you?
Stunning. Wow.
No, you can you can edit and grade at many streams of 4K all at the same time. Yeah, it's crazy.
I hope that factory doesn't
Alex's
burn down.
basement.
iJustine just tweeted about 15 minutes ago, and it was both scary and kind of cool. Thank you, Scooter X, in the chat room. So iJustine tweets, running at high elevation is new for me, and I passed out a mile in. I'm so mad because I didn't have fall detection on my Apple Watch because I would have actually needed it, but at least I could see the exact moment of blackout thanks to the heart rate drop.
There's a proper geek is like, at least I got the data.
At least I could see my heart rate go from 122 to 0. Anyway, she says, then I walked a mile back. So I guess she's okay, but holy moly.
That's a serious. That's Justine's geek cred. She's got her priorities all like, well, at least I got a good.
She tweeted this 20 minutes ago. It happened an hour ago. Like she's right on the Twitter. So
I can't change the fact that I passed out, but at least I got content from it.
Yeah, right.
I would not have done this for the content, but since I have the content, I can do some good with it.
I feel like training jujitsu now, but there's a safer way to train yourself to resist cross chokes than high altitude pass outs.
What I didn't realize, and I've learned something today, is that when you do pass out, your heart rate goes down practically instantly to 72 beats per minute, apparently, from close to 164.
It probably goes into survival mode, Leo. So I'm guessing it's
maybe that's
it. Alive.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually cool. That's part of the defense mechanism. The fact that when your blood pressure dives down, yes, you pass out for a lot of very straightforward reasons. But one of the adaptations is that if you're lying flat, your heart can push blood around your body a lot better, and so there's a good chance that you'll actually come out of it. It's
all right. So Renee Ritchie is our nominated for our rumor debunker.
Okay.
As always.
Bring it on, Laporte.
Bring it on from Apple Insider. Apple M1X chip appears on CPU Monkey, which I've never heard of, but 12 core. This is a benchmark site. According to an alleged benchmark of a pre-sample of the M1X that appeared on CPU Monkey, as Apple Insider points out, we can't independently verify anything about this, so take it with a grain of salt. But it's completely credible. The M1X chip in this benchmark is 12 cores instead of 8. internal GPU 16 core instead of 8. So a GPU forward Apple processor. Renee, credible, yes or no?
So, I mean, the thing to remember about benchmarks is that, like, one of the reasons that they leak out is that a lot of them will surreptitiously, or at least without telling you, without informing you, without asking you, upload your results to their servers.
Right.
Which is why whenever people get review devices, you see just Geekbench light up with them. They don't realize that it's happening. Internal people are usually smart enough to know that, and so they disable that functionality,
right,
or they use their own internal tools. The only thing that I'd say here is that I don't think it matters if the benchmarks for this leak out, because an M1X would be using the same generation silicon IP that the M1
exactly
does.
It's a
only gonna have
5
more
nanometer,
cores.
3.2 gigahertz chip. So it's not a faster chip. It's not a new process.
A single core would be the same. Yeah.
Yep.
So it would just be you would just logically extend the number of cores out for the multi-core processing potential.
Right. Why would Apple, you think, do more GPU cores? Is there What would that give you better GPU performance?
They have to, because they're not doing discrete GPUs, and the high-end MacBook Pros and iMacs all currently have AMD discrete GPUs, but those have phenomenal power draw. Like if I put Final Cut on my Mac and take out the plug, it goes from like 8 hours of battery life to an hour and a half, just because it's hitting the GPU so hard. So what they're hoping to get, like, just to give you an example, I think the power draw on the MacBook Pro now is 99 watts. Like it's as much as legally allowed. And the M series runs at about, I think, 12 to 15 watts. So they have a phenomenal envelope at which to accelerate what people commonly think of as an integrated GPU, using just scaling out the number of cores.
Would that do it for you, Alex, or do you still need something more?
No, I think that we're going to be able to do it with the built-in cores. I think you're going to keep on adding cores. I think as we see more of these chips come out, when we see the M2, M3, M4, what we're going to see are more CPU cores and more GPU cores and more RAM. You know, like that. You know, like that's what's going to distinguish these chips from each other.
And more Thunderbolt ports.
And unified memory means they get all the RAM to the graphics as well.
Yeah, you can always add a dongle. Yeah. I have a bunch of dongles in my purse.
Oh, I would. I mean, I would love to have more, but I'm just saying that it's one of the great things, by the way, about I have a bunch of the minis, is just have so many connections.
The old minis, much easier. But not the new minis.
The new ones are still. I got 2 USBs and I've got an HDMI and two USB-Cs, and so I've got a bunch of stuff that's available to me at that point. But I think that what we're going to see, that's what's going to distinguish these chips from each other as we go towards a Mac Pro, is more cores and more cores of both graphics and then also more RAM. And I think that it's going to make a stunning difference. Like it really is an exciting time to. We were talking about it this morning on Office Hours that I really was very clear that I've said this before on the show. I was very clear that I was moving to Linux or Windows for all the high end work, and we were already starting to do that, buy computers that were going down that direction.
Yeah.
And now we don't have to do that.
No, in fact, I wish I could get the equivalent of an M1 on Windows, or Linux. Not Windows so much, but on Linux. I would be really thrilled. But it's okay. I'll use a Mac. I can live with it.
They're working on getting Linux. Don't they have some form of Linux running on the M1
now? Yeah, they
now?
do. Corellium, the company that does the emulator stuff, has made has created a Linux that'll run on the M1. But Apple's put up a lot of roadblocks to running anything but macOS on the new hardware. The
advantage that these GPUs are going to have, there's a couple things. One is that the only reason they did discrete GPUs is because it was a modular design to begin with. Like, you would go to the cart and you'd order the parts and put them together yourself. But if you're making your own thing, it doesn't matter if it's discrete or if it's embedded, if it's built onto the board. What really just matters is what you can do with it. And
in fact, it's better if you can get the same kind of horsepower built on, right?
Yeah,
because
unless you want a machine like a Mac Pro, would be nice if they broke it out into a module board that you could replace, over the years as the computer ages. But just for, like, especially for portables, most integrated graphics never had not only did they not have unified memory, they never had the amount of memory that unified memory provides them. They were relatively RAM starved, and now they get access to not all of it, but they get access to a large chunk of that. And as you increase both those things, the architecture, like when Alex said the M2 and the M3, the architecture is also going to get better. And they've hired some amazing GPU talent over the last few years. So I expect we'll see both the architecture improve for the GPU, the amount of voltage they feed it will improve, and the number of cores will improve. And I don't think it's at all unreasonable to say that they will be knocking on AMD and NVIDIA's door within 2 to 3 years. Maybe really hard.
Let me offer a proposition, Alex, and you tell me if I'm wrong on this. Of course, it's nice to be able to upgrade GPU or to use an eGPU, but if you can buy hardware, and I'm going to, this is a secondary question, but if I add more GPU cores, that's the horsepower I'm looking for. Is that right, Alex?
It is to some degree, yeah.
So in a Pro, I'm going to guess, and I want to know from you, Alex, if this is the case, isn't so worried about upgradability. They're going to buy another one if they need the more horsepower, right?
Well, a lot of times so I have some PCs that have 4 big NVIDIA cards in them, four, PC with
But given the benefit of having those GPUs on core.
Yeah, it very well could be. It just depends on how many cores they add. And the thing is that being integrated with the RAM and with the CPU makes them so much more efficient that I'm not sure what Apple has to do to be as good as all of those cards I'm adding to it right now. And so I don't know.
Well, let's stipulate that they could get close to that, but it's not upgradable. I think that you would accept that as a trade-off and just say, well, when I need more horsepower, I'll buy the next one in a year or two. Because you're a professional.
I think there's a high probability that if Apple pushes it far enough, it will be faster than anything out there that is reasonable. And then now the question is, with a Mac Pro, do you just make that part of the computer replaceable? So can we just pull having that whole heart, you could just pull that heart out and put another one in, and it might cost you.
Module.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so you could just pull that module out and put another module in because it's all unified. So
is that whole notion of upgradability kind of maybe out of date? Maybe that's not.
It just depends on how fast you can advertise the hardware. Yeah. I mean, when you start spending $50,000 on a piece of hardware, you may want to be able to upgrade it for a little while. But I think that it is. It just depends on how fast it is and what you're using it for. But I have to admit, most computers that I buy, I don't upgrade after I build it. Like I have a PC that sitting next to me, or a Linux box that's sitting next to me, and I spent a lot of money on it and built a really beefy one, but I'm not constantly upgrading stuff. Now, some people may, but I don't know if Mac users do that a lot.
I think it's
depends a lot on the. Sorry.
No, let me finish this.
I was just going to say
Go ahead. You go. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I apologize. That might be a second.
I'm a terrible traffic cop. I got to work on this. Okay, wait a minute. Hold on.
It also depends on the.
Renee, Rich, you
need more practice, Leo.
I know. I need more practice. Come on.
Okay, go ahead.
Who's going? Me? Am I going?
Yes. I'm a terrible. As I said,
so it also depends.
Can I get white gloves? Would that help? Okay, go ahead.
It depends a lot on the market too, because for mainstream customers, the people who are not computer enthusiasts, the people who look at them as tools to get their job done, it really has improved the quality of the computer for them, that the things aren't modular, because a lot of issues that people had over the years, when you look back at the repair reports, were things just like RAM modules getting loose, or hard drive module problems. It was a fact that all these parts were kind of just assembled, like they were made from parts bins. They were just thrown together.
Even Ray Maxwell on the new Mac Pro had a problem with the Promise RAID card because it was made by Promise, not by Apple, and there was an incompatibility which they fixed. If everything's
it's cheaper, it's cheaper when you buy. It is more expensive when you have to replace it because it is a whole thing. It's no longer modular. But for hobbyists and enthusiasts and pros, then you need the modularity, because we're the ones who want to buy that $6,000 chassis once and then keep updating the CPU, GPU, and everything else for the next 10 years.
Yeah, that's kind of my question. Is the trade-off worth it?
A lot of us did upgrade the cheese grater a lot. Like we were constantly changing stuff inside the cheese grater.
But that may have been because you had to, right? Like,
yeah.
The enclosure was too good. Like the enclosure didn't break.
Right.
I think that the new Mac Pros are potentially something you want to upgrade. I think all the other ones, not really. Yeah. Like no one's really thinking about that as a Mac user. I mean, there's like a 1% or 2%, but not 90%. 90% are just like, I'm going to buy this and I'm going to use it until I replace it. I'm going to put it on the shelf and have it be a server doing something else. And it will be insanely fast for a long time. So I think that overall, I do think that the Mac Pro, how they manage that, I know they know. I don't know anything about what they're going to do with it. But I think with the other computers, everything up to the Mac Pro, no one's going to expect to internally upgrade it. So they may buy peripherals that make it faster or better, but they're not going to do anything internally to make it faster or better.
I like your proposition that maybe you have an upgradable CPU module.
Yeah, I think that we're really the thing is when you look at the AR stuff that's happening and USDZ. I mean, I just feel like this is just this massive wave about to hit us.
Yes, I agree.
Of 3D. I mean, I think that when you start opening 3D really easily managing it in Motion, you see the future of every app. Motion and Final Cut now have 3D just built in, and you can just kind of move it around. What happens when that's in Keynote and Pages, and what happens if you can pop objects out and throw them into the living room from that? And it's going to be very hard for any other platform that doesn't support this at the OS system to do it. And so it's going to be very compelling and competitive in the next couple of years.
You know, one of the things that makes Apple unique is that their table stakes for graphics are very, very high relative to Windows and other platforms. With Windows and Linux, there are entire parts of the marketplace where, look, all we're doing is we're pushing spreadsheets. Graphics performance really doesn't matter whatsoever. Whereas every single level of the operating system will integrate every highest level of graphics performance that Apple has available to itself, and that has to work on phones, has to work on tablets, it has to work on the desktop. So when I say the table stakes are pretty high, it's difficult to compare the power of. I'm sorry. It's difficult. It's difficult to translate the difficulty of creating the same sort of opportunities that are available on Windows and Linux and transplanting that to the Mac, because they have to make sure that the GPU that you get for free, even if you're just buying it for your kid, is going to be adequate for a very, very wide spectrum of users.
Renee?
Yep.
The thing I keep thinking about is that Apple just announced that new Mac Pro. Like, it was 2020, like it was 2019. They had the M1 Max, the whole M series Max well underway. And I don't think they would have invested that much in creating all those modules, like the Afterburner card, the M1 extension cards, all of those things as like just a one-off. So I'm praying that when they get to the M1, like the M series version of the Mac Pro and that sort of smaller one that we've heard rumors of, they will make extensions like that allow them to offboard some of the things, like maybe even the processor, the memory, the graphics, so that you will be able to swap out or at least upgrade those things, because that's a phenomenal investment in industrial design just to waste it on one computer for 2 years.
Your power supply is probably good. Your case is probably good. Most of your RAM is probably going to be good. The idea of having to upgrade an entire box with all of that stuff in it just because you find one part of the architecture to be inadequate for your current needs, that's contrary to Apple's message of, oh, look how green friendly and how recyclable all of our packaging is. We love the planet so much that we're not going to give people cables and power adapters anymore. That's how much we love the planet. But if we landfill a $30,000 computer, hey.
I will say that I very much doubt that the current computers will support the M1. Like, I think that the M1 will be a new piece of hardware. I think that and you'll use the other one for something else. It's not like you're going to throw it away. I mean, I don't know when the last time I threw a computer away, unless it broke. I mean, like they're all used for other things.
We gave all our cheese graters away. We couldn't figure out what to do with the old cheese graters.
But think about the people who own the shops that only need like one really good powerful computer, or only a couple of really good powerful computers. It's not as though you can give the old computers to the marketing department if you're a single proprietor or if you're just 2 or 3 people. And these are the people that kind of get hit when it's like, damn it, I've got this. Like I said, how much when I spent $12,000 on this workstation, how much of it was in everything that is still perfectly good for my needs and will still support a new CPU or a new graphics card? That's the one thing that constantly gets me interested in Windows. The idea of if I start with the right motherboard, I can upgrade CPUs for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, on and on and on.
I have to admit that. I mean, I don't know how everyone runs what they do. Generally, I need everything to pay itself off in 6 months. Right. like when I buy something.
Well, that's kind of
if it's not going to. At that point, I rent things
every year.
I rent things if I'm not going to pay off in 6 months. I just go. I need to know how it's going to pay itself off. It's going to have to do this much work and everything else.
So if you had to upgrade every year, and you would be okay, because it would, that's 6 months of profit.
Right.
You said something really interesting, Alex, and I think maybe we've underestimated the power of Apple owning the whole stack, because whatever Apple decides to do with all of this capability, they're going to be able to put a huge amount of power behind it. And so, it comes in both directions. They're designing something new and designing the hardware to support it, but also the hardware stack will enable stuff that maybe they haven't even imagined yet. I think right now they're thinking AR.
Well, and I think they've imagined a lot.
Yes.
So I think that I think the thing is that I think that when we look at this, I mean the where we are now, it was probably the roadmap was probably created a decade ago. And so I think that they're imagining.
Agree. But you don't want to throw out serendipity either, because you can't imagine all the possible uses, and it may be there's something that comes up because you have this stack that you didn't think of.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that like if someone was asking me what the most valuable piece of what are the most valuable software that I own, and I said what I made the most money with is Keynote and Numbers. Keynote and Numbers. I show people what's possible, and then I tell them how much it's going to cost. It is funny because it is we can talk about all these other apps I'd love to use, but those are the ones that pay the bills. And I built tons of stuff on PowerPoint and slides and Keynote, and Keynote is, I mean, it's just clearly better. Like it's than the other platforms, and it gives you a competitive advantage. And when I can add 3D objects to it, it's going to be a big deal. Now the hard part is I won't be able to send them to anyone or show it to anyone that's not on a modern platform. So it puts a lot of pressure on a lot of things, and so in business you're going to have a competitive advantage to be able to pop up, people are going to be showing clients things on iPads in 3D on and then you're going to need tools to build all of that, and then you're going to be sending your clients AR stuff. Oh, you don't have that? Oh, you're left out. And there's not going to be easy ways to do that in other platforms. And so, and all this hardware is really building towards this highly graphical future that is where the future is going. We're not going back to text.
It's challenging though, because you're trying to figure out 5 years ahead of time what's going to be the next big thing, and you're building all your hardware aiming toward that. And if you pick wrong.
The thing is that the easiest way to predict the future is to create it, and Apple's in a position to do that. Where there's just it's much easier. They're building just so much capacity. It's a real, like the AR situation is a perfect example of the difference between Apple and Google. Google threw something up on the wall really early that was really cool. So I mean, what they were doing was groundbreaking, but it was half baked. And they were just waiting to see if it was going to work. Then they quit. They just like, oh, well, this didn't work. So then they moved on. Apple is slow to the market, moving very, very like just inch by inch, slowly doling out a little bit more every day. And
Google started by building the roof. Apple's starting by building the foundation.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that gets lost in the conversation is that Google always was very, very explicit that this is an experiment, that the whole rollout of it was that, look, we don't know how people want to wear this sort of stuff. We don't know how well people, it's a simple question of if you're wearing a really explicit wearable device, how do other people interact with you and how does that affect interactions? There's a reason why it wasn't just a regular for sale project. It was the Google Glass was called the Explorer Edition.
Yeah.
Right, but they took a lot of good experience out of it. I think a lot of the entire industry learned a lot about it. And though it's very, very true what Alex is saying about all the groundwork that Apple is doing to make sure that they have right now, they seem to have 95% of everything they need on the software side, and all they need now is the technology, the hardware technology, the display technology to catch up. However, it's still a crapshoot about whether the world is going to change enough that enough people have the access to augmented reality technology so that if you create an AR presentation for something, great. If you walk into a conference room and they're going to say, oh, well, here's the projector. I hope your AR device uses VGA because that's all we have. We don't even have HDMI. It has to be accessible, and it has to be something that the society really, really groks, or else it is going to be like something like Google Glass, where it still exists, HoloLens still exists, but it's only inside a rarefied environment in which everybody absolutely makes sense for them to have it, such as training, such as architecture firms that want to walk your billion-dollar client through your $10 billion project in a very, very flashy way.
What you have here is by the way, this is throughout the technology industry, and I bet you it's in real life as well, two different philosophies, top-down versus bottom-up. And there's arguments. You made a great argument, Andy, for top-down, and Alex made a great argument for bottom-up.
Well, it's just
there's a problem with each. The problem with bottom-up is you don't know what's going to happen when you get to the holy land of a perfect hardware or software stack. Maybe you got it wrong. Maybe there's something else that's even better to do. And the problem with Andy with the top-down is it's a half-baked idea, so you don't ever really know fully what is possible because you're throwing stuff at the wall. Well, I wish there was some way to combine both.
The issue is like Google just has it's one of many examples of where Google gave up early. Well, I don't know if they've completely given up. They just lost a lot of ground.
Yeah.
The thing is like let's go back to Hangouts. Let's talk about Hangouts, something I know a lot about. Google built the coolest thing that they had ever built, and then they gutted it. And that turned out really well for them, didn't it?
Oh, I know.
It was like a $200 billion mistake.
It doesn't always work. I think it's also very possible that Apple is making a big bet on AR, VR, and it turns out nobody wants it. That's the other side. That's the downside of doing it this way. You're gonna if it turns out to be what Tim Cook and everybody else thinks the next great big thing, then they'll be perfectly positioned. But it's also risky. It's not guaranteed.
It'll come down to content. Like they just have to. Apple has to.
I don't know. You know what? They've been pushing this AR thing for a long time. Does anybody use the AR? I know you do, Alex. And I made my mask fitters with my Bellas 3D. But honestly, most of them look like toys, experiments, games. They don't look that serious. I know you see a future, Alex, where it is serious. But I don't think the market has said at this point, yeah, we really want this. The market doesn't know. And you're right. You're taking the Steve Jobs, Alan Kay point of view that you tell the market what it wants at a time.
Well, yeah.
The other way of thinking about it is that this is there's the research that's very, very useful when you keep it behind closed doors. Because I don't want to spring this upon the public until we have the entire story ready to tell. We can't just give them Act 1 and Act 2 and then say that you guys write Act 3 for us. We will be standing by taking notes on what you think Act 3 should be, how the story should end. Yeah. Well, the other thing is that sometimes the other idea is that sometimes developing technology, it really is like being a working comedian where you have to just go. You have to be in New York City.
Yeah,
exactly. You have to go for three different slots a night, working on material. You dispose of stuff that didn't find an audience, or you keep developing it doesn't work. You find the stuff that does work, you keep embellishing it and building upon it. It's not a one-to-one analogy, but sometimes there are things I really, really admire about Apple's way of doing things, which is not only it's not so much that we have a finished thing, it's that we have something that we ourselves absolutely believe in, and we're willing to define this as this is part of what the company's future is all about. We are not going to throw away something that we think the future is all about for the company. I also appreciate Google's idea of this is a good idea. We're not going to know if it works until we actually put it out there. This is why when someone says, "How about if we had a helium balloon with like a robotic balloon?"
That project, that's a loony idea.
To where the internet has to be, and Google will say, "That's stupid. That's a ridiculous idea. We're going to give. We think you're so stupid. We're going to give you $100,000 to do a pilot program just so you can prove how stupid you are."
There is a hazard, though, to Google's way of doing things as a public company in the public eye, which is stuff can get killed because of a short-term quarterly mentality. That so Apple, by keeping it secret and by holding their cards tight to their chest, does have that luxury of working on something for years, so that when it does emerge, it's a little more fully formed. Look, those are two philosophies. I don't think one is right. I think they're just two different ways of doing things.
The heavy challenge for Google, though, is that no one trusts them anymore. So when they come out with something cool and they put it out, we're like, we'll see. Like we'll see how long they hang on with it. And so the problem is now they're in this self-fulfilling prophecy.
Nobody trusts
jump in because it does take investment of time and energy to build up. Right. When people spent millions and millions of dollars to build up huge followings on G+, and then they kill it.
I agree with you. I mean, you look at Magic Leap. There are a lot of examples where in both cases where, Magic Leap developed this magic thing everybody said was magic. Then they came out with something everybody said that's no good, and it's over. It's basically killed the company. So
hype to nothing.
Yeah, so there's a risk. I'm excited about what Apple's doing. I hope that they leave a little space at the end for something unexpected because that's what often happens with technology is you put something out there and you find unexpected uses that actually.
That's what the Apple Watch, though, right? Like that's the good model for this. They had the Apple Watch had very confusing, very broad messaging, and they used 1 or 2 generations to hone down onto what is now very specific, very appealing messaging. And I think that's the case with product categories that aren't that well established. Like they had 10 years of watching tablet PC, 10 years of watching phone, and all that stuff got figured out for them while they were watching the market. But wearables and now visualables, whatever you want to call them, projectables, all those things are brand new. And so they've got to be part of the process rather than just sitting back and observing it all. They can look at a few really early, like that old Crossing the Chasm, those really early adapters, and see what they think is going on. But I think it's going to take them 2 or 3 generations to nail whatever the AR stuff ends up being.
To Andy's point, I mean, Apple does do a fair bit of, there's like the reason I keep on buying the Sport Watch on the Apple watches is because I just know I'm going to get another one. Like I know that they're going to figure some more stuff out and then I'll buy a new one, but I'm not going to spend a lot of money on it because I know that it's going to update, and they've done okay with that watch.
They've done very well.
When they came out, people ridiculed them about no one's ever going to buy that.
That's actually an example of an iterative process for Apple compared to the pre-planned process that they might be pursuing now with AR. Great conversation. Thank you, guys. We're going to take a little break, and we can apply what we have learned here today to the Apple car, which is our next topic. Our show today brought to you by IT Pro TV. Boy, the tech industry, you'd have to say, even in COVID, especially in COVID, has been expanding. The demand for IT skills in the workforce is growing. I saw the other day 4 million job openings for IT professionals. An IT career could be rewarding, longevity, and you know what? If you're listening to our shows on Twit, you probably have got a pre-incline towards that kind of thing. I want to suggest IT Pro TV. This is the place to get those IT skills that are in demand so you can get that job, that perfect job. You want to be valuable to your future employers, your current employer, if you're already in IT, and you will with IT Pro TV. In fact, IT Pro TV is great because you can get information about what the hot jobs are. You can they'll help you figure out which fields you're most interested in, and then they'll tell you which certifications you need to get that first job. And all of this, it's not hard, it's not a burden, it's fun. All of their instructors are pros in the industry, but with great teaching styles. They're entertaining, they're informative. You're going to learn in a way that you enjoy. And IT Pro TV really has doubled down on this. They started in 2013. We introduced them to you, and of course sent them many people. I know many of you are IT Pro TV customers already. Over the intervening years, they've gotten bigger and bigger. Lisa and I went out a few years ago to see their new studios in Gainesville. They now have 7 studios running Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. It's kind of remarkable because IT changes. Everything changes. New versions come out. The questions change in the cert exams. But that's why IT Pro TV is always making new content. Now, 5,800 hours of great IT training. You can stream it on your computer, on your phone. You can watch it on your Fire TV, your Roku, your Apple TV. Get the certs you need without leaving home at your own pace, your own schedule. A lot of IT Pro TV students are working day jobs, but they want a better future, and that's why they go to IT Pro TV. One reviewer said, "This site has helped me with 2 certifications. Also, as this, and I love this, the supplemental material for my grad school classes." That's how high quality this is. Give it a try. You won't be disappointed. February is Project Management Month at IT Pro TV. They had a great webinar February 11th. It's on demand now, called Navigating the Future of Project Management. You can watch that. You can take courses in PMP, ITIL, Service Management, Agile. You can get training in Microsoft, Cisco, Apple, Linux. They're also the only official video training partner for CompTIA. So they have all the CompTIA cert courses, A+, Network Plus, Security Plus. If you need and want one, you can get one of IT Pro TV's amazing learning coaches and all the wonderful job resources to help guide you on your career path. You'll always be supported with IT Pro TV's amazing team. And don't forget, there's a Don Pizzette on the screen. He does a really great free podcast everybody can listen to called TechNado, featuring IT guests and IT news recaps for a deeper dive into the realm of information technology. IT Pro TV. Get a new career in IT with the best IT education around. Go to itpro.tv/MacBreak. Use the code MacBreak30 to receive, 30% off all consumer subscriptions. And that 30% holds as long as you stay active. Use the code MacBreak30 for an additional 30% off for the lifetime of your active subscription. IT Pro TV. Build or expand your IT career and enjoy the journey. itpro.tv/MacBreak. Offer code MacBreak30. We love those guys, Don and Tim and the whole IT Pro TV gang. So, who's the... It's not Hyundai. Apparently, it's not Kia. Or is it Kia? I don't know. Nissan, maybe, is in the running. I have a friend who says, watch, Leo, it'll end up being Ford.
Could be Bombardier.
Didn't Ford just announce they're doing a bunch of Android stuff?
They did a 5-year deal with Google, so I think probably Ford's out of the running. But who knows? You know.
Well,
Renee,
is this manufacturing partner? Like it wouldn't be any of their fleet's cars.
It's the Foxconn of automobiles, or is it? So that it is. I mean, we don't know that for sure. We're assuming that they'll have that same model they have for the iPhone. But I've been thinking maybe it isn't. Maybe they're looking for somebody.
The Razor? Or the the Razor. What was it? The rocker. The rocker.
Yeah. Well, no. That's okay. That's a bad example. It's not the rocker. But maybe they are
the tone down, Renee.
Maybe. Yeah. Really. Maybe that was the first Apple phone that was a complete. Who did they do that with? Singular? It was a real Motorola. That's right. It was a real flop. But no. What if it's a car maker making a car under its own badge that says, Apple inside, or it has an Apple logo on the hood or something? I mean, it might not.
Sort of like CarPlay plus.
Yeah. It could be that. I mean, that's the
CarPlay,
deal Google's making with Ford. It's not going to be a Google car. It's going to be a Ford.
It's just it's not even that. The deal with Ford is that their in-dash computer that does navigation, that does entertainment, is just going to be built on the on top of the Android operating system.
Well, but it could be more. They're implying there's more than that, actually, Andy. That obviously the operating system.
That's what we know. I don't know what the future lies.
The automaker said it's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The tie-up will make Google responsible for much of the automaker's growing in-vehicle connectivity, as well as cloud computing and other technology services, in addition to using whatever it's called, the Google Auto platform, to replace QNX, which Ford uses currently. So it's a big... I think it could. Yeah. It's unclear what the scope would be, but I think it's beyond just the operating system.
Canada is very unhappy.
Why?
With this
another blow for BlackBerry. Dagnabbit.
Oh, QNX.
Yes.
Oh, poor little QNX.
They have no industry.
Yeah.
But it is a big question that there's. I like the idea of some automaker that has an electric car platform. That the old, going back to the old model of you have the auto factory, the auto foundry that makes all the stuff that makes it a rolling motorized platform, and then you hand it off to Cadillac, you hand it off to a company that's a coach builder that then makes it into either a luxury car or makes it into a truck or makes it into whatever.
Andy, you nailed it, because that's exactly what EVs are. They are really a skateboard, a platform that you put a lid on, and it's your, thing. And that's exactly why I think this could happen for Apple in a variety of ways. You nailed it. And the EV platform lends itself to that, because it's the battery, it's the motors, it's everything. They call it the skateboard, and that's the base. And it turns out the reason there was a lot of interest in Kia is Kia Hyundai have a brand new skateboard. They already have 37 vehicles planned to build on top of it. It's they've got factory in Georgia. They have a platform, the GPM platform.
And I wouldn't be surprised if what Apple wants is the platform. They don't want to figure that part out because it's not important to them.
That's not their business.
It's not user-facing.
They don't care.
It's not their user-facing.
Yeah. I mean, they might be able to do...
they don't want the safe. They don't want the certifications.
Safety.
They don't want to create the network of garages for service.
You nailed it.
All that stuff.
Yeah, and frankly, as a buyer, one of the reasons I didn't buy another Tesla when the lease ran out in the first one is I want a car maker. I love the idea that a software maker is developing all of this great stuff on top of it, and that's why an Apple car is of interest. But you nailed it, Andy. I want the four wheels to be good. I want the brakes to work. You know,
want fit and finish.
And fit and finish is also important. And Tesla has stumbled in those areas.
I wonder, and I think that right now it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the car market in general over the next decade. I think that COVID is going to make a massive change in people's behavior. And I think that it's going to be a really interesting, because I think a lot of people aren't going to be commuting the way that they were. A lot of companies are moving away from that. And so you don't have the same sensitivities towards a lot of those things or the same needs than what we've had for the last 50
You probably are going to design stuff for a fleet buyer as opposed to an individual buyer, right?
Yeah, or again, like I look at my interest was really a Tesla. Like I want a sports car that does whatever, and now I just want a box that just gets, it just takes me from one place to the other, and I don't expect to go one place to the other very often. And I think that there's a lot of, as we see this huge migration out of cities and out of certain states and so on and so forth, a lot of people are, they're not expecting to have to do a lot of travel. Like that hour and a half that we were losing each way to wherever we were going for work. I think is largely,
I think
going to
personal
go away,
ownership of vehicles is going away as well. It's just not an efficient use of resources.
I think the only thing is it depends on how long something like COVID lasts. If it lasts for years, the way that some people say it is, then you're not going to want to share. I think it's really bad for Uber. You're not going to really want to share your car with anybody if we have to, if COVID's a constant problem.
That's a good point. One hopes that will not be a constant problem. I understand.
Yes, absolutely.
That's a possibility, though. So Hyundai is announcing it's the first vehicle based on, I misnamed the acronym, the Electric Global Modular Platform, or EGMP platform, February 23rd, and the Ioniq will be the first. And listen to this headline in the Hyundai press release. Hyundai reveals Ioniq 5's living space and sustainable interior. This is kind of towards your box theory, right? It's just it's something you get in, a living room you get in, and you go somewhere.
I think that's going to be most of them. Like I really feel like, and we saw this a couple of years ago, and I think that when I first saw it, I thought it was absurd. But the more I look at what I wish I had when on a long trip is, I just wish I could just hang out and watch TV, or take a nap, or be on my phone or exercise or whatever. I don't really want to drive or even know where I am. Like when I'm driving, I don't even need the windows. Yeah. Like you can give me an LCD and give me, if I say, show me what's outside, it shows me what's outside.
I think the Ford Google model is actually a template for what's going to happen, which is Ford will make the car stuff. Jim Farley, the CEO of Ford, said, one of the most important parts of our strategy is to partner. That means we have to get out of the business of doing generic things that we do not add value to, like navigation systems, a lot of the in-car entertainment experience. He says we were spending hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions every year keeping up with a basically generic experience that wasn't competitive to your cell phone. That's a really good point.
The best part of the LCD, the best part of the Honda, we have a Honda, and the best part of the LCD is it's the easiest place to put a suction cup so I can put my iPad in front of it.
I am getting a new Ford this week, and it's going to have a big screen. But suction
it won't
cup,
be as good as your iPad.
It won't be as good as my iPad. And suction cup to it is a knob that actually just has capacitive touch underneath it, so that when you spin it, it actually feels like you're turning a knob, but really it's just a finger going around and around on the screen. Which is a very car maker-like solution to a software issue, right? To a user interface issue. So I think there is an opportunity. Apple just got 3 Project Titan patents today relating to a 3D AR windshield display that fits right into Apple's expertise, a next-generation airbag system, which does not. But I guess Apple's got to design that airbag-based occupant safety system.
Yeah. It's difficult when you think about someone who is not necessarily going to be sitting on a seat facing forward with next to an A pillar or B pillar.
Oh, that's a good point.
How do you? So what if you have someone that's facing the rear? How do you create a restraint system? So so that's
or two people facing each other, right?
Yeah.
A
lot of it is like airbags. Some of it are actually like deceleration systems, where like imagine a seatbelt. Only the strap is very, very long, and instead of like holding you in, it just simply decelerates you as you move forward, so that you still wind up like on the floor, but by the time you're on the floor, you're moving at like 1 foot every second. It's a non-trivial problem, and it illustrates how little people, how few assumptions that any of these designers can make about what is a self-driving vehicle going to be used for. Is it going to be something that you jump in at an airport that you don't own? Is it going to be something that just automatically you get out of, you own the car, you get out of the car, your car automatically goes to an off-site parking facility and then comes back when you need it? Is it going to be
around.
As
like they're talking about the fact that you just get out of your car. Yeah. Just drives around, just keeps driving around,
and picks up passengers, or as Alex said, is it going to be sort of like the 1932 ideal of you just get into this like little living room with a bed and a desk, and then when a Disney cartoon character pops up on the windscreen saying, "Hi, you might want to wake up soon because we're almost at the airport."
Oh, Goofy,
that would be great.
Hi,
I'm 100%
wake up!
That coffee, we're about to be hit by a semi truck.
Oh no! The patent actually,
the last voice you'll hear on this earth.
The patent actually does include an inflator, an airbag, and a chute switch, packaging the airbag system within a roof rail along a belt line or in any location inclusive of a vehicle crush zone where an inflator may. So the idea is you could put the bag anywhere. And here are two people facing each other, and an airbag pops up in between them. So I think that's interesting. The third patent is for something called integrated chassis control, and it's about electronic stability control. So clearly Apple, I mean, we've always talked about how patents don't necessarily reflect the real work that's going on, but clearly Apple in Project Titan is looking at the whole vehicle, not just a software
you're right.
layer.
It definitely means that they're at least spending money developing this technology, whether or not this is something that they have a target date for.
Yeah.
So I'm still baffled, but okay, it's a patent.
Renee, who do you think, or is it premature to even think about who their partner might be? Is Kia now out of it? Kia says we're not in the mix, but couldn't that just be them? Listening to Tim Cook saying, if you mention our name one more time, you ought to.
Yeah, it's that, I have a friend, Devin, who does a legal channel. And he did this video where he just looked at it and goes, stop talking.
Yeah,
just stop talking. Don't say anything. Don't admit to anything. Stop talking.
Stop talking.
And that's true with Apple partners. Like I remember, I think Foxconn said one thing once publicly and they never said anything about Apple again. So I'm guessing they're still in the running and they're emphatic about how not in the running they are just because they really, really want to stay in the running.
Definitely didn't talk to Apple. Definitely didn't.
Yeah. Cops in the press have one thing in common, especially if you're a tech industry executive. You don't say nothing without a lawyer present.
Yeah.
You have no comment. You're not answering any questions until you have a legal advice at your hands.
There's so many stories around this. I have to think that something is there. There's a lot of smoke. There must be a fire somewhere there, or in the words of another joke, there's a pony in there somewhere. Nissan says we are not in talks with Apple. We're not. We are not in talks with Apple. Say it again. This is a Reuters story from Sunday, which means probably they are in talks, right? Why would you even?
Yeah. Was there an emoji after that statement? And was it like a wink emoji?
The Financial Times had reported that there were brief discussions with Apple and Nissan, which faltered, according to FT, over Nissan's reluctance to become an assembler for Apple-branded cars. Added that the talks had not advanced to the senior management level. And then Nissan said, no, we're not talking to Apple.
This isn't an analyst call. They're not legally required to tell the truth.
Yeah,
it's possible. They're better things to say than a qualitative answer. But they could just simply say, "Hey, we might internally they might be thinking, hey, we might get this contract. We might not get this contract. Let's just stonewall for now."
Yeah. Volkswagen's CEO says, "We are not afraid of an Apple car. There's nothing to fear here."
That sounds a lot like I remember a lot of cell phone companies saying that.
Yeah, we are not afraid of an Apple phone.
Yeah, like this is a whole market they don't understand. They're computer people and we're phone people, and they're not going to understand how this works. That turned out really well.
Herbert D. said, the car industry is not a typical tech sector you could take over at a single stroke.
Yeah.
Apple will not manage that overnight. He said Apple's plans, while not public, are logical because the company has expertise in batteries, software, and design, and that it had deep pockets to build in these competencies. Still, we are not afraid, he said.
Yeah. Alex is right. This is a lot like spokesperson Mad Libs, where you just change some of the adverbs, change some of the nouns in the iPhone. But at the same time, we already have automakers that proven that the technology is electric cars are now the technology is sophisticated enough that if you want to make an $80,000 electric car, boom, done. We can do that. No problem. What color do you want it? What leather do you want in the seats? We can do that. The next challenge is to get the people who are coming in with the typical budget for a car, $25,000 to $35,000, and make sure that they have an electric car that's available to them. That might not be within Apple's core competencies. And given that we're looking at laws like in Massachusetts, in 2035, they're regulating that by 2035 we will not allow the purchase of the sale of gas burning passenger cars in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So that sounds like it's a far way away, but that considering that how many different kinds of buyers you have to satisfy, you have to have someone who comes in with all I can afford is a $17,000, $500. If you got one with an AM radio and no air conditioning, that's how much I got to spend on this brand new car. Now think about how difficult it's going to be going from right now to create a car that can be sold at that amount of money. It's not a company like Apple that I think is going to be able to do that. It's a company like Ford and GM and Volkswagen, the companies that are used to punching out cars by the hundreds of thousands at all different price levels. Not the company that is used to saying, "Oh well, let's talk about the chamfer angles on these wheels on this new $30,000 workstation." There is some meat on that argument that Apple is right now. I'm thinking that if Apple does actually produce a car, they're going to have great success. It's going to be a beautiful car, but it's going to be more like a Lotus, more like one of these cars that is extremely well written about, extremely well loved, innovative, but they sell 4,000 to 5,000 of them and they're priced accordingly, as opposed to the Toyota Corolla, which is what the industry really needs right now, just for electric cars, let alone autonomous vehicles.
iOS 14.5. Renee, are you running it yet, Renee? You probably are.
I am.
Yeah. Well,
and it's a big one, Leo, because again, they're talking about new emoji, which, as we all know, is the biggest driver to upgrade.
When are they going to make it that you can upgrade to emoji without upgrading the entire operating system?
What's the point? They want you to upgrade everything. The emoji are the driver, Leo.
That's the carrot. Why would they take off the carrot off the stick?
Are the emojis really that big?
Yes.
Yes. They're the single biggest driver for upgrades.
Okay.
Yes.
Because that's what most people care about, Alex. They, if you see the empty little box and you know someone sent you an emoji that you don't have, it destroys your communication parity. Like for a regular person, I think they would lose every feature on their phone before their emoji.
Although I did see an article, probably just link bait, saying emojis are over. It's over. No. But I can't see that.
Clearly they don't. Clearly they're not online.
It's all about AI stickers from now on. AI stickers. Mark my words.
So the second beta of iOS 14 has been seeded, which means we're probably getting close. What will be? Give us the highlights of new features besides.
I'm guessing it'll be a March event. Like if we're at beta 2 now and Apple has a March event, I'm guessing that the final version would come out in March along with the AirTags and the other things that would benefit from it being it.
Yeah, Prosser's saying AirTags are coming out in March. Not that Prosser's always right.
No, but it makes
come a day early. I spent a half an hour
ready for a year.
I spent a half an hour looking for my keys yesterday, just going, if I had AirTags, this all would happen really quickly.
Oh, maybe they don't have AirTags on the AirTags, and they've spent a year trying to find where they left them in Cupertino.
What I would love for them is to say, what would be great is if they said, oh, by the way, we put the AirTag technology in all the last Apple TVs, so you could find your controller.
The remote. They're in the remote.
The new one's supposed to have it. Yeah, it's too early, but the new one's supposed to have it.
Does it have to have the UWB, the W1 in it to do it?
Ultra wide, yeah.
No, but it has to have the capacity to alert you to its presence in some way, and that means it either has to be able to emit sound or it has to show up on the AR system that they're going to be using to highlight where it is in the room.
Yeah.
And I don't think the controller has any. Maybe the Bluetooth could do it, but I don't think it has any constantly emitting Bluetooth beacon capabilities.
Yeah. This is a big update. This is almost a whole point update, right? I mean,
this is what we've wanted, though, Leo. We've wanted them to stop doing these monolithic releases at launch that were buggy
a little bit at a time
and would drag on, but just stage them out. Why stage them out over the year? It's not like we're going to throw the phone out in October.
200 new emoji, including, look at that, an AirPod Max headphone design instead of whatever that generic thing was.
Looks like an AKG.
Yeah.
AKG was super puffy.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. That kind of has a Bose-y feel, though. Couldn't it be the Bose? Anyway, the new ones are very obviously the AirPod Max. Some swipe gestures in music. And actually, this is stuff in beta 2. That wasn't in earlier betas, I gather. I'm not playing with it. Screen animation on the Apple Watch related to unlocking your iPhone has been slightly redesigned. Well, that's exciting. Any other changes, Renee, that are important that we should highlight?
Proxy?
Not that immediately comes to mind.
Oh, the proxying is interesting. Yeah, they're going to. So now,
for security,
in Safari, in Safari. And this is true of most browsers. There's a safe search feature where it keeps you off of malware, or safe browsing feature, I should say, where it keeps you off of malware sites. That on Safari goes through Google. Google keeps track of all of that. Now Apple's going to proxy that so that it still uses the Google results, but it hides your IP address from Google. Only Apple sees it. I expanded proxy into that. Is that right? Is that what you were talking about?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was first discovered by users on Reddit who was looking at the traffic off of the beta and seeing that's now going through a server.
Proxy.safebrowsing.apple URL.
Thank you. Yes. And that's an interesting move. It's exactly, I think, what we want from Apple. One of the things I've been a little bit unsatisfied with is that up until maybe a year ago, Apple's been very, very satisfied with talking about privacy and user security as a talking point, as a club to hit Google and Facebook and other companies over the head with. But the answer I want to come back with is, that's great because you make a really great web browser and you could integrate all these kind of tools that, Google and Facebook, they're bad, but what's really great is horrible are these data mining companies that have infinite tags that follow you wherever you go, and they'll sell that information, personal information, to everyone. Why don't you build that into the browser? And answer, there comes none. This is part of Apple baking into their own distro tools that I think that everybody is going to benefit from, particularly in this kind of case, where if they think that, hey, if I'm using safe browsing, that's almost they equate that with, hey, I'm running through a VPN and I'm using the Tor browser. No. Google can still, they don't know where you're going, but they know who you are when you access this URL, whatever URL you're opening. The only other thought that I have about that, though, is that if Apple takes this to an extreme, really the most user positive thing they can do is make sure that it's absolutely impossible for them for anybody to track you over the internet for any purpose whatsoever, to really protect you aggressively, and that they're going to have to find a line that they have to absolutely carefully fall short of, because if they keep going forward, this is just the first step, and again, a very good first step. But imagine if they kind of got drunk on this they could actually demonetize every single service on the net, because a lot of people are kind of okay with tracking if it means that, hey, I can use this really great collaborative Office suite for absolutely free, and it works great, and it's the standard for everybody. All I have to do is give up some personal information, and you have to make sure that all those tools still work. All the tools that people rely on and people that are okay with working with, those still have to work. But I'm glad to see Apple putting a lot more, throwing some shoulders into their defense of the users by baking this stuff into their own distros now.
Of course, if you're, I mean, to be cynical for a second, I mean, if you are a company that's where a lot of your revenue is based on subscription, why would you support the ad model at all? I mean, like, why would you do anything that didn't just cut the knees off from the ad model?
You know what I want to hurt?
So I think that's a
ahead.
false. Like one of the things that I think Facebook especially has been promoting, and I think it's been unfortunately widely adopted, is that you have to choose between the two. Like even in terms of data harvesting, you don't have to link data harvesting to data exploitation. That is a conscious decision. You can do lots of stuff with data harvesting, and you can do lots of stuff in advertising. And I know it's their fervent belief that if you affect their ability to target users, it is an existential threat. But even targeting users doesn't have to be based upon the wholesale, complete, utter shadow and real profiling of them. There is a wealth of data. There's a superficial layer of data that provides you 80 to 90% of the benefits without having to take my entire life apart to get it. And I think the better that's understood, the less tolerance we'll have for the way they're currently doing it, and force them to evolve into a better way.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that right now, with the tracking is kind of like, chocolate with, infused with crack. And it's like, and they're like, this is selling really well, and we're not sure of how many people will just have the chocolate.
But they just need the chocolate.
They're really addicted.
They just need the chocolate.
But that's what we're telling them. But they're like, but this sells really well.
Google's gotten better.
It is like. The issue is that, I mean, when you see the data, the multipliers to the money going in, money going out of, advertising, if you know what you're doing, is just it's amazing. Like, it's just, and so that's the hard part, is that you won't get those numbers again without that tracking. You will get good numbers, but it'll be like you get $1.5 out for every dollar you put in instead of $6. Like that's the problem.
Yeah, Facebook hates it. Google hates it, but it's great for people like me because we can't track people, so it at least gives us a little better parity. Well,
a lot of their tracking, like a lot of the stuff, to Alex's point, the chocolate is enough, and Google's gotten way better about providing value in exchange for data. Like Facebook still seems like they just want all your data and are willing to give you minimal benefit. But
they give you value. I mean, like, let's be clear. I mean, people always spend a lot of time. I don't know whether it's good value or not, but they do spend a lot of time on Facebook.
Yeah,
and there's
you
a lot
get something for it. You bet.
There's a lot.
Well, I mean, you get
there's a lot of connection
fed disinformation, but the main point I'm trying to make is that
some people actually like it, Renee. I'm with you, but some people do. Lisa and I had that conversation this morning.
There's no direct relationship. Like with Google, you can see a direct relationship with you feeding them photos and them giving you better photo tools.
Oh, I disagree.
There's a parity to the relationship.
That people love Facebook.
I'm not arguing that you don't get the value from it. I'm arguing that like the exchange isn't as
obvious,
isn't as one-to-one as what Google is doing now. But the greater point is a lot of the stuff is they don't want to show, like if you get shown an algorithmic ad and you don't click on it, and you get shown it again and you don't click on it, after 7 times they figure you're never going to click on it, and they don't want to spend the money to show you that ad again. And the only way they know that you're Leo is by identifying you and tracking you to every website. But there's all sorts of advertising that's more brand focused or just not focused in general, or are based upon identifiers that don't require them to be side by side with you to achieve very similar goals, which is why I argue that it's currently a lazy, wasteful implementation, and things like this can force them to do better, cleaner, less egregious implementations of the exact same
I should
thing.
point out that and I don't think it's widely understood, that there are really different kinds of advertisers. Coca-Cola is not measuring the sale of Coke by its response. It's brand advertising by its response to its Super Bowl ads. But there are quite a few advertisers, including all of our advertisers, who very much want to couple the ad spend with the revenue generated, so they know if it's worthwhile. And I think any small business is that way. I'm not going to buy ads for my flower store unless I know I'm selling flowers. So they want. I completely understand why they want to know, is this ad working?
Yeah,
and they don't want to overspend either.
They don't need to know it's you. They need to know it's somebody in that campaign. They don't need to know it's Leo.
Well, that's why we use. That's why we use Mac whatever it is SanDisk.com/MacBreak, because the hope is people will use that and that'll give them some input on that, but it's not a very good system.
I don't have to give them a photograph of my driver's license when I click on the link.
Facebook's a lot better at that. Google's a lot better at that, and that's a strong competitor for us. Yeah. And frankly, in the podcast world, Spotify is going to be a lot better at that because they know who you are when you're listening to Spotify. But
they're so good that we think they're listening in on a microphone. That is how good they've gotten at it, and that is a startling amount of ability.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
I'm glad you brought that up. That is the classic example of twice now that's come up on my NPR show, where people, because they must be listening through my phone because I was just talking about this new yoga class 2 days ago, and after don't worry about it, they're not listening through your microphone. They just know they're just following you and your friend so detailed that they think it's probably likely that you talked about this 2 days ago and can flash you that ad. Yeah. But I totally agree with Renee, though, that one of the great things that Apple does is if a company is going to exert its muscles without any opposition, they're going to keep flexing nonstop. They don't know what a border is and a limitation is until they actually encounter it. Apple can, in addition to federal legislation, which I think is a very good thing to happen worldwide and in the United States, Apple has the ability to say, well, look, we are going to make it very, very difficult for you to do a Wild West sort of implementation of user tracking. We have a very, very simple fence. There is still a gate in that fence, so you can still cross that fence whenever you want, but we are going to make sure you can't just simply trample the flower beds and use the person's pool. You can just go through this one fence that I think is very, very good. That's why Google. Yep.
We're moving on. Breaking news. You may remember Epic Games, speaking of Spotify, Tile, and others formed the Coalition for App Fairness. They wrote a bill which they sent to the North Dakota State Senate that would force Apple to allow iPhone owners to sideload apps and to use alternative in-app payment options. In other words, not to use the App Store. Just now, according to this tweet, the North Dakota Senate voted the bill down. So that was averted. Disaster for Apple was averted. But Arizona and Georgia are considering similar bills, and I imagine Epic is not going to rest until they get some state to say, no, you can't have an App Store, Apple.
Yeah, and then they'll go to the Supreme Court. And then it'll be dead. Yeah. It's because it's not constitutional. It's not gonna go anywhere. And the problem is that Epic is fighting this stupid battle because they are clearly the technology leaders in real-time 3D. And I would be surprised if in March or June or whenever Apple does another keynote, if Apple doesn't take the spot that they were giving to Unreal, the hundreds of millions of dollars of PR that they were giving them, and say, hey, let's see what Unity's doing. And let's see how this, it's literally, we'll see. But I would be surprised. Apple's never going to show Epic again on a keynote ever. And so the thing is that, the only other option is Unity. And so the thing is for all of us, we're kind of people who are developing apparently for the app platform, all of us just kind of step back. We're like, I'm going to pause. I'm going to pause for a second. And Epic is doing incredible things. And it's the best thing that Epic's lawsuit is the best thing that happened to Unity in the history of its company. And so it's just
because people are using Unity.
Well, Apple's. I will be surprised. We'll see what happens. I will be surprised if Apple ever talks about Unreal again, and if it doesn't start pushing Unity down the pipe.
Right.
I think it's not so much that they're fighting stupidly, but that it's a stupid fight, but they're fighting stupidly, and they're doing it in a way that makes it look like they care about nothing but being epic. They like to. It's almost like Facebook's small businesses thing, where they have clear motivations in order to be they want to become an app store, and they want to be able to collect rent from a variety of apps, which is what they're doing on the PC using tactics like exclusives, which some people find objectionable. My whole thing with this is my personal preference would be for the iPhone to simply get Gatekeeper the way the Mac has, and that way, for my mom, my sister, anybody who doesn't care, they would have the exact same safe, trusted app store experience scam apps aside, and I'm sure we'll get to those eventually, that they've always had. Like, it doesn't take an option away from them, but that the rest of us can, if we really want to, just go in, turn on different gatekeeper modes, and then sideload things like we do on the app today, on the Mac today. The thing I worry about is that for a lot of mainstream users, traditional computers have been alienating and intimidating and have caused them a lot of pain. And Steve Jobs' express purpose in creating the iPhone and the iPad was to make something more mainstream friendly, something that was a controlled console environment. And we have the Mac, we have Android, we have PCs, but increasingly, even in terms of the complexity of the iPad and iPadOS, it feels like us 10, 20% of traditional computer users are like, no, those are pretty. We want those too. And we don't care that in many ways it's making them worse for mainstream customers. They're pretty, and everything should be for nerds. And I really hope we don't lose the vast majority of far less vocal mainstream customers just from our desire to nerdify everything.
The thing that's,
if I want to sideload, I'll use an Android. I have Android phones that I sideload.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I can have whatever I want to geek out on. I just don't do it on my
If you want to get further upset, the North Dakota senator who proposed the bill said he'd been given the draft legislation by a lobbyist for Odney Public Affairs in Bismarck, North Dakota, who said she had been hired by Epic Games and was also being paid by the Coalition for App Fairness. That's the Epic Spotify coalition. And basically, Epic wrote the bill and fed it to a senator who then proposed it. Not uncommon.
Let's be clear. That's really common. It's really common for lobbyists to write bills. So we don't want to. I mean, I'll slouch him for a lot of things, but not that, because that's kind of common practice. Yeah, lobbyists There's
now a Microsoft Office app for your iPad. It's always been available as an iPhone, not always, but it's been available for some time as an iPhone app. But now it's on the iPad. Yeah. That's going to make the iPad, especially with the Magic Keyboard, a very interesting choice for people who want to use Microsoft Office instead of Keynote.
It's crazy. Like,
it is awful.
Every time we talk about Office, I just got to say,
why would you use that?
If you're doing huge numbers, if you're doing massive calculations, you need Excel for that. Yeah. But I got to tell you that 99% of the people don't do that, and Keynote is so much better at everything else.
What does Alex Lindsey use? What's his secret weapon? Keynote and numbers.
Keynote numbers.
Yeah. But you can't ignore the fact that Office is the grease for the gears of industry and business. So this is what you graduate from. The basic education of computer literacy for kids is not to learn a spreadsheet or to learn a presentation app. You have to learn how to use Excel. You have to learn how to use PowerPoint and the Google Office apps. So this is a very big deal. It basically allows IT departments to support a much broader spectrum of users. It gives iPad users near parity.
You know why I like it? Because it pisses Windows users off. Why did you release that for iPad first? Apple is
especially when we have ARM Windows tablets that are every bit as good.
Apple is offering free repairs for Apple Watch Series 5 and SE devices stuck in power reserve mode. They did a software update. If that didn't fix it for you, free repairs. According to Neil Seibart, Apple Watch is now worn by 100 million wrists. A billion iPhones, in a billion pockets, and 100 million wrists for the Apple Watch. You think that's low, Renee?
No, but I think he's a conservative analyst. He will jump on these tirades about IDC and other companies with their completely wrong, inflated, imaginary numbers. So he has a vested interest in being as accurate and conservative with these numbers as possible.
He says at the current rate of sales, the Apple Watch installed base will exceed the Mac installed base next year.
Well, there are a lot of angles in that number as well, I'm betting.
When we hear about Apple's not going to move into cars, we heard this with phones, we heard this with the watch. Oh, people aren't going to do this. This is not going to. It's not going to work, And
I like the point that the Apple Watch, Apple really didn't know what it was going to be when they released it. I know it didn't sell me initially, but it has found its voice, and it's found its voice through users, I think. Yeah. So
the other thing is the thing that makes it unique is that it is all Apple had to do was build a really, really cool, stylish watch that tells time, and they would have had a win. They had enough to, and that's why we have not seen the design of that watch change one iota really since version 0, because they designed a really like the Movado watch, like the watch that's in the Museum of Modern Art. It's such a beautiful design that even if you're not really sold on, as I will never ever let them live this down, watching live video of your own garage door opening at your watch's command.
You keep bringing that up, Andy.
Because it's the biggest damn rake Apple has ever stepped on. It is next to it's the gold watch, the $12,000 gold watch, and the demo. Look, now I can open my garage door and watch the garage door.
Actually,
open.
Andy, if they would do that, I would be very happy. I don't know why. I don't know why my MyQ doesn't work on my watch. I want it to work on my watch because I always have to take out my phone.
To be your best. Wheels for the mind.
And by the way, Facebook's going to be doing a smartwatch next year, so stand back, Apple.
Oh yeah, boy! If there's anybody you trust having a prison tag on your wrist at all times, I want Facebook to be able to track me with a field tag at all times.
I wonder how well that Amazon watch, which I own but I never wear, I look at it on my dresser every morning going, no.
Nice try.
Yeah, same thing, right? Amazon, and it didn't even have a watch face. It just was a Velcro band with a thing underneath it to tell you if you were yelling at people.
I will say that we thought that the portal would be a total disaster.
Portal's good.
It's sold a lot of those.
I wish I hadn't given it to Burke. He's taken them apart. I don't know what he's done with them. I bought 2 portals, and Burke has them now. So I don't.
It's nice that your Jibo has someone to talk to.
Yes, exactly. It's in the closet with the Jibo. Yeah. All right. I think, gentlemen, prepare your picks. Our picks of the week are next, and for the picks of the week this week, I think I'm going to start. I have mixed feelings because Alex will cost me money. Andy will give me something I can really use. And Renee Ritchie's probably going to cost me money too. So let me start with Renee Ritchie, and then I can balance it out. I can figure out who I spend.
Can you start like so? I just have to run backward.
Run backwards. Let's let Andy and Akko go next.
Okay.
Pick of the
week. Mine is free and cool. It's the Historical Dictionary of Science Fiction. You can go. It's free. It's at sfdictionary.com. It is. I actually found out about it before it was released because it's one of the heads of the project is an editor by the name of Jesse Scheidlauer, who used to be a contributing editor for the Oxford English Dictionary, used to be editor for dictionaries at Random House. That's where I first met him because he reached out to me like years ago to write a dictionary of internet slang in 1996, 1997 or something.
Yeah.
So it was real good to hear from him again. And this science fiction dictionary is sort of an outcropping of a solution to a problem that the OED had, which was that some years ago that they didn't have a really good content, really good authoritative content for science fiction terms. And so they didn't necessarily crowdsource it, but they basically did some outreach and saying, if you are part of this community, write things down on slips of paper and send them to us so that we can include this stuff. And he had this idea a few years ago of, gee, we should actually turn this into like a ongoing resource. So it is now like a online app, online resource at sfdictionary.com, where it's not a Wikipedia, it's not necessarily crowdsourced, but it is being updated and maintained by editors that they are recruiting through this same very site. And it's amazing because I was actually talking to him about it. I talked to him on Skype for an hour about it last night, and I had to say to him that, look, the science fiction community, they can't agree on which captain is the best captain on Star Trek. How are you going to get them to agree like what science fiction is defined as, which has always been like the hugest argument about, oh no, this isn't science fiction. No, this is science fiction. That doesn't count. It's a game. This can't be science fiction. And it is designed not to be a conversation about this stuff or an argument about this stuff, but to create the kind of authoritative attitude towards these definitions. So It does have a definition for science fiction. It is a generic. It is a very, very short and very, very informative one. But it also includes like a quote from someone saying, "Look, the discussion about this is just as intense and flame-worthy as the definition itself." But also, they can't just simply say this is what we understand it to be. There's also the etymology of it, and the first source they have for it goes back to 1898 to. I don't have the right window in front of me.
It's got to be H.G. Wells, right?
An article in 1898 on a pharmacy like publication. That is. Hang on, I
have it right here. Well,
there you go.
Is this
so?
1898, yeah. If I click this, it's going to say Bulletin of Pharmacy, Volume 12, Number 10. Mr. H.G. Wells, the imaginative writer of science fiction, has recently brought out a thrilling romance.
Right.
So that's the first use of it. That's hysterical.
Yep.
And you can even see the page.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Look at this. The Bulletin of Pharmacy. Here is the first appearance of the word science fiction. Yeah. There it is, right there.
And the other stuff I like about it is that it's not like I'm a fan of Babylon 5, so I have to have like every single name of every single Centauri ship and every single Vorlon ship has to be no. It really is designed to be a dictionary, but nonetheless it was so interesting to look through it because I was like again that was on my mind because of course Babylon 5 is on HBO and now I'm like rewatching it all again. So oh wow, slug thrower. I didn't know that. Okay, that's a very very specific because on Babylon 5. A slug thrower is how they refer to it's not an energy hand pistol, but one that actually fires bullets. And then I click on it and say, oh no, actually slug thrower dates back to the 1960s. It's like classic science fiction.
Oh wow,
it is not cool. It is not one person's opinion. It is here is the etymology of it. Here's the source for it. So it's not just a static publication. It's going to continue to evolve, and I look forward to being the one central depository of these definitions and their origins. I keep coming back to thoughts about the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. About in the book, it said that the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is it's often very very wrong, but at least it's authoritatively wrong. Meaning, and that's actually useful in that if you disagree with their definition of science fiction, at least there is an authoritative source that you think is wrong that now all the discussion can sort of hover around. And because nobody has a dog in this fight, it really is going to be just about let's just make sure that there's an understanding that we all have about what these things mean. It's not like the Urban Dictionary. So it's really, really cool. It's permanently bookmarked. It's on that. I dragged it almost immediately to the reference folder in my browser tabs. And it's not as long as it's going to be in the coming years, but it's still, again, the number of times I click on something thinking that, oh yeah, that was invented in like 1980, whatever. So no, again, 1932, it was first used by people who are writing fan fiction. Like, okay, I am dumb. I'm going to watch and listen.
It is the Historical Dictionary of Science Fiction at sfdictionary.com. And by the way, they split the difference. They mentioned both Trekkies and Trekkers. So
yes,
you get to choose.
although they did lay the groundwork for some flame wars. There is Klingons have a listing, Romulans have a listing, Vulcans do not have a listing.
Oh, that is an oversight we must correct.
It's not going to be authoritative science fiction unless you're pissing somebody off. So I'm glad that they put that
Fascinating.
in there. It's like hate is the sourdough starter of any conversation about the meaning of science fiction.
Rene Ritchie has managed to reach over and pick up something very interesting. What is that, Rene?
Yeah. So this is a Canon C70 that I was talking about earlier today, and it's Canon's first cinema camera that's in the smaller body format, something closer to what their higher end cameras used to be.
How many Alexes is this going to set me back?
I have to. It's
Canadian Alex conversion is always difficult.
No, it's like 5,500.
A swig of water.
US.
Okay,
but it's way cheaper than their traditional cinema cameras, which have been, up to $10,000,
a little
$20,000.
under 8 Alexes. Okay.
Well, I mean, you can find it retail for around $5,500.
Okay.
And it's their first RF mount as well, which is what all their new lenses are. They've been moving away from EF mounts to RF mounts. And this also has the dual gain sensor that they had in the C300 Mark III, which just means that you have sort of two sweet spots. Alex is going to explain all of this better, so I don't even know why I'm bothering. But you basically have two sweet spots for the exposure, where you can get much better performance at low light and at higher light levels. And it also records on on SD cards rather than CF cards. And to the delight of vloggers everywhere, it has the flippy outy screen.
Love that.
Which
need that.
Sony has refused to put on a lot of their cameras.
Gotta have that.
But yeah,
I gotta see myself.
And being able to turn it all. It being able to turn 180 degrees is really important.
So
a lot of them don't.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. There's no point in having a flip out if you can't turn it around.
There's a lot of them that don't.
That's ridiculous. So that's the RF mount, which also works with the Blackmagic Komodo. I wonder which body I should get, Alex.
The red Komodo.
Red Komodo.
Red Komodo. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think the Blackmagic, or they might use EF still. But the other thing I like about it is it's real.
Oh, okay. There you go.
It's
I have
really
a lot
small.
of EF
It's got all the controls that you want to have on it, and it also records in. It is a Super 35 camera, but they have a new speed booster that came out with it, so you can put on EF lenses and get them pretty much equivalent to full frame, and it records in log 2, which the R5 does not do. And there's been hints that Canon might enable it with a firmware patch, but Canon insists on being maddening and always just denying a few critical features to every single camera that they put out for no apparent reason. Not even for differentiation, because some of them have it and some don't. It's just, I think it's for learned helplessness reasons. It doesn't do RAW, but it does do 10-bit, which is what I'm mostly interested in anyway. And to have SD cards, dual SD card slots, so you can record two sessions at the same time. I'm going to experiment with it as a B cam for a while, but I think it's for people who favor video. I think the R5 is way better if you're shooting stills as well, because they still time you out on long session video recording. But if you really want to focus on video and you want to up your video game and you don't want to buy a high-end Cine camera, much less a Red, much less as someone of Alex's calibers probably want to do, this is great to start breaking into that level of production.
I have to admit, I only buy Blackmagic cameras now. I rent Aries. Like I'm not going to buy a
12K?
Aries, but
The new 12K,
I haven't bought
Alex.
the 12K yet.
And you want to shoot that 12K video.
We're talking about it. I mean, getting a couple, but
so the Canon EOS C70 4K. Yeah. It's a cinema camera. I mean, you could shoot stills, I guess, but that's not what it's for.
I don't even know if it does. You have to probably take a frame capture at that point.
It's lists for 10 Alexes, but you can get it for as little as 8 Alexes if you shop around.
We've been adding to that.
5 Alexes.
In office hours, we've been adding to it. So we actually have new money denominations. There's the Alex, which is $700. There is a Mickey, which is $3,200, and then there's a Charles, which is $11,000.
Oh my God!
And it just makes it so much easier. Like, it's only a Charles. So
it turns out you're the cheapskate in the bunch.
I am.
That's nice. It's available now, obviously, because you've got one, Renee. So
they were in limited supply over the holidays, but now they've started shipping. You can often, if you don't go to the bigger places, if you go to local stores, they'll still do online shipping, but they'll have stock that the big stores have run out of.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Renee. And now I don't know if I'm going to be spending an Alex, a Mickey, or a Charles. What is it going to be?
No, it's not very expensive, but it is something everyone should run out and buy. So we had some guys on last week on office hours that were amazing. So Henny the Business and Kennard Garrett, and they are music producers. I mean, they've worked with all kinds of folks, and they have developed an app with Audio Toolkit or Audio Kit Pro. Are you familiar? I've talked about that in the past. We've talked about some of their software. It's open source software that gives people the tools to make music. And these guys came on, and it was so amazing to look at what they had done. They had sampled a Mark I keyboard very carefully with their students and they teach at Moorhead College. And so what they did is they built an app that is this great keyboard app and it's like $4 on the App Store. All the money, not some of the money, but all the money goes back to the music unit for the Creative and Performing Arts Division at Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. So when you're buying it, you're really supporting that music program. And they've got, I can't believe that they have those guys as instructors, because they're really, if you go back on YouTube and look at last Thursday, I think is when we had them on, and the amazing instructors that are there, and they built this, and they built it with Jeff Cooper and Matthew Fetcher from who work on AudioKit. They're building the app itself. So you can buy the app for $4. You should go do that. The source code is on GitHub. Like
Nice.
you can actually go up to GitHub and download it and see how they put it together, and and figure those bits and and there's so many audio apps that are coming out based on this.
This is not it.
On the code base.
This is AudioKit Pro, which is what they use to build it.
Right.
What's the name of the app?
The app is called House Mark 1. House Mark 1 is the
Mark
app.
1. Okay.
Yeah, House Mark 1, and it is. I don't quite understand how they stay in business and how they do what they're doing, but they seem to make it work, and they make really pretty web pages. And it's a great. It's one of those things that's difficult to. Let me see if I can do this.
Music creators, we are inspired.
Let's see. I want to hear some of this.
Made sure that it made sense for me, because all in
So this is the software. He's using a real keyboard,
it's a simple tool.
But he's got a keyboard tied in to the software. And I got to say, these guys have taken Bluetooth.
external MIDI track.
So it's not MIDI, it's Bluetooth?
It's MIDI. It's MIDI.
Yeah.
But it is. But I mean, the crazy thing is, these guys have taken production on an iPad way beyond anything I've thought about. Like
Nice.
they really know how to do it, and they're really building everything into that. It's a really slick app and amazing programs they've got going on.
You can use it without a physical keyboard, obviously, right?
You can.
Right.
You can use it.
play
You
it.
can use it on the iPad, but the fact that it ties right in, and then you really get some incredible sounds. I mean, just very, very realistic sounds from the keyboard. It's a really it's addicting. It's just fun to play with. So
House Mark 1 on the App Store, created by two platinum-selling producers, and it all benefits Morehouse. $4.
Yep. $4 just for a price of a relatively good Starbucks coffee. You can have you can support them and get this great app that's really addicting, and you should do it.
2/100 of a Alex.
$4. Yeah, exactly.
It's practically nothing.
Practically free.
I got free. This I tip of the hat to John Gruber for this, and I've been meaning to mention it. Do you know what I hate? I hate that every time I go to a website, it's got to pop up a thing saying, we use cookies. And I have to say, okay, what a damn waste of time that is. I know you use cookies. Everyone does. So you know what I'm talking about. Hush, right?
It's so good.
It blocks the cookie nags and privacy invasive tracking in Safari. It does it on the iPhone, iPad, and Mac. And I've installed it on Safari on all three platforms because I hate all those pop-ups, including cookies, sign up for our newsletter, push notification requests, which you can turn off globally, but it's nice to have this. Hush. And it's open source, it's free, and it's on the App Store, HUSH, Noiseless Browsing by Joel Arvidsson. And again, tip of the hat to John Gruber for mentioning that. He did it last month, but I finally got around to mentioning on the show. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. What a good show. Alex Lindsey is office hours every morning, twice on a Sunday, because the guy just can't get enough work, I guess. Crazy.
It's a lot of fun. We do it. It starts very early in the morning, so it stays out of my workday.
So it's more work before work. It's that should be your motto, by the way. Alex,
the one thing I have to say is we really noticed over the weekend is it's a conversation that you couldn't have anywhere else. Like it is 20 people all having a conversation that usually spans 4 or 5 continents with 200 or 300 people watching. It's and asking questions and interacting all the time, not just watching, but the audience runs the conversation. Like you just ask questions about media production or virtual production, and we answer them. That's the whole show.
I just have to make this my morning show and just put it on, and when I get up and just have it all morning as I'm getting ready, because that's probably what everybody else does. You can get the Zoom link if you go to his YouTube page, youtube.com/ALEXLINDSAY. And you can also see the 7 o'clock hour, which he puts on YouTube. But that's only one of the 3.
Well, there's actually about 4, 5. Well, there's technically about 5 hours every morning, but I'm not there the whole time. There's a pre-show, which is just us hanging out talking. That's at 5, and then there's the pre-show at 6, And then there's the 7 to 9. That's the show. And then there's a post show. But I don't usually stay for most of the post shows.
That
was
Howard
run by
Stern.
everybody else.
It just never
so
ends.
It's like 5 hours. It's like 5 hours, yeah.
Thank you, Alex. I'm so glad to have you back on the panel. Will we see you next
Good
week?
to be back. Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
I know you work really hard, so you can take any week you want off, but boy, we sure like it when you're here.
It's good to be here.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Andy Ihnatko, WGBH Boston this Friday.
Yes, any Friday that Trump is not on trial for something, I am there at 12:30 in the afternoon.
That may become problematic down the road. But okay.
Again, I'm aware of it, but sacrifices must be made if justice is going to be pursued. Just go to wgbhnews.org to stream it either live or later.
Very nice. Always a pleasure to have you on, Andrew. And Renee Ritchie's on youtube.com/Renee Ritchie. He's also got a great show that he does called Apple Talk with Georgia Dow. We see him in iMore and everywhere else. Anything you want to plug?
So speaking of Georgia Dow, I mean, she's the real star of that show. I'm just doing backup. She made us do the hot sauce challenge during the podcast, which I was not happy about, and actually started hurting me towards the end.
Yeah.
Every question we answered, we had to take a hotter degree of hot sauce, and nobody needed that.
I will never understand why people do that.
Wait until she does it on Twitleo. I mean, you're
She's
only
not.
safe because she's only on once in a while.
It ain't going to happen. I'm going to watch. Does she get bright red?
No, but we do both start to cry. Unfortunately, it doesn't really show up well on the video. Like because we at a certain point, like our eyes were just burning, and we're trying to answer questions, and we're forgetting what the question was.
Which one is it?
Asked because
Which one is it?
It's the latest episode of Apple Talk.
The ethics.
I think it's called
and the Bezos factor.
No, Twitter opinions and hot sauce.
Twitter opinions and hot sauce, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
On the Apple Talk podcast.
You can't have Twitter opinions once you're eating hot sauce. Everyone should just eat hot sauce and stay off Twitter.
I don't think it's up yet. I hate to tell you.
No?
I don't think it's up yet. I see the most recent one is AR ethics and the Bezos factor.
I will double check. I had to put it up this week instead of the usual people, so I might have been completely bad about it.
Maybe you forgot to mark it public or something.
I'll double check. I apologize. But yeah, it'll be this week's episode.
I'm subscribed, so everybody should.
I see it. It says, at least on YouTube, I see it. Twitter opinions and hot sauce tiers.
Can you look at my screen and see what am I missing?
Maybe it's not on the podcast one. Maybe the podcast got delayed.
Oh, that's probably what. I'm looking at the podcast.
But on the YouTube channel, it's there.
Okay. And what is the YouTube channel called?
YouTube.com/Apple Talk.
Oh, that's easy. You got your own name
Apple Talk
now.
Show, sorry.
Oh.
Apple Talk Show.
One more thing. I got the monkey. There it is. Twitter opinions and hot sauce. Oh, she's crying. She's going to cry. Yeah. Oh. How can Georgia Dow's hair is already bright red. I don't know if she should do any hot sauce.
Yeah, and the thing is that she wasn't happy with the quality of the sauces, so now she wants to get the actual hot ones sauces, which I think are way more painful. Yeah, and I'm no Sean Evans, so not going to go well for anybody.
Personally, I love it. I love his show. But the thing is, it's good to have him as like a guide. That it's like if you take acid for the first time, you want someone to guide you on your acid trip.
Yeah.
And Sean Evans is a good person to have. That's why I worry about like you in Georgia, just like. Yeah. I'm just going to drive into the desert.
No.
We're going to drop 5
guy.
million Scovilles and see what happens.
She had no concern for my safety. The opposite, in fact, could be argued.
What was the hottest sauce you did? Do you know?
I forget, but the second to hottest was the way hottest for me. Like the second one, the last one was smokier. It didn't bother me as much. Yeah. The one right before the last one was pure pain.
I'm watching this one. Twitter opinions and hot sauce tears. YouTube.com/talk. Apple Talk Show. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. No hot sauce here. I'm sorry. Just hot talk.
Smarter than you.
I am not doing that one. We do Mac Break Weekly every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UTC. You can tune in and watch us live if the streams are up at twit.tv/live. There should be audio and video there, a variety of choices for you. If you're watching live, chat live at irc.twit.tv. After the fact, on-demand versions of this and everything we do is available at twit.tv. For Mac Break Weekly, it's twit.tv/MBW. Should you want a deep link to that, you can also join our YouTube channel for Mac Break Weekly. And I think the best thing to do is probably subscribe in your favorite podcast application. That way you'll get it automatically the minute the show's done. As soon as our editors clean all the filthy words and the spitting out. Actually, I don't think there'll be much editing on this show. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Mac Break Weekly. Bye-bye.
Hey, folks, I'm Ant Pruitt, host of Hands of Photography here on Twit TV. I know some of you have gotten yourself a brand new camera, or you just had a camera sitting around and can't quite figure out how to get the most out of it. Well, I have a solution. My show, Hands on Photography. So subscribe right now to learn how to get the most out of that camera. I'm going to show you how to make those images pop. I don't care if it's a Canon camera. I don't care if it's a Sony, Nikon, iPhone, Android, even an inexpensive Android device. I got you covered. So head on over to twit.tv/hop and subscribe today.